Look within. Look within. Look within. And live your life. And live your life on the edge of two worlds. A reality where you find true understanding of who you are. Take the step into the unknown with Alexander McCaig and Jason Rigby as they explore the thinly veiled world of consciousness, spirit, and the human condition. Join them in embodying the oneness of all. Walk the cliff's edge between the seen and the unseen realities. Welcome to High Density Living.
Eat Reese's Pieces. You like that subconscious?
Subliminal.
Yeah, subliminal.
It's like when you're in the...
I just put it into someone's consciousness.
Yeah, and were you in the
Somebody's
movie
going to
theater?
be craving those Reese's Pieces cups.
Oh, they like put the, like they flash the food and stuff in you.
I love that. Bro, tell everyone about your hat. Let's start there.
Oh, yeah, I want to shout out to the...
It's not like F and U or F.
Yeah, no, shout out to the Electronic Frontier Foundation. At Tartle, we are donors to them, and it was very nice of them to send me an article of clothing.
Yeah, Tartle.co.
Yeah.
Sign up, get paid for your data.
Thank you very much for that plug. And then, and the reason we donate to them is they're pro-privacy, pro-freedom of internet. They're anti-surveillance, all obvious things that align with who we are.
And it also brings the power back to the people.
Right. And I think it's important that we champion other people that are on those same mission and goals that we have.
I love it.
Thanks.
I'm
So
gonna have to
that's
get
the
one
hat.
too.
F it.
Effing, yeah.
F.
The
man.
The man, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever the man, the artificial intelligence man.
F the big cerebral, neuron.
Yeah, there's
silicon brain thing.
Yeah, I just picture like our logo, and then a big brain wrapped around it, and then these like little LED lights with those colors going around on the. What do you call that? What are the little parts of the like the membrane,
like the flaps,
and then in between it, yeah,
and like the folds.
We're going to talk about the there's a name for it. It's not turtle. It's something like that.
I don't know.
I have it in here. We're going to talk about crows.
Oh, crows
they have
are
a level of
interesting.
consciousness.
The crows are really interesting.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah.
So we did law of cause and effect, the law of causality.
Right.
I want you to talk about these creation laws, and then we'll get into one.
Well, so we're on the second part of the series for our creational law series within Higher Density Living's episodes. And the reason we're doing this is because through observation of everything that happens around us, right, nature and the universe, there are obvious things that are, how would I say this? They're immemorial. They've lasted forever since the inception of the universe, right? And we are all bound by these things. The thing is, we ignore them.
Yes.
So I want to make sure that we go through and we talk about all the different laws, okay? And a law is something that has been tested so many times that it won't go out or deviate from the effect. It's just funny because we did cause and effect the other episode. It doesn't deviate from the cause and effect that we, think or know is going to happen because we follow that law, right? Gravity, it's a law because we've tested, if you throw something in the air, it's going to fall to the ground.
Right. Newton.
We'll do it over and over and over and over and over again.
Hit by an apple.
Right. And just until it becomes unreasonable to keep testing it, it becomes a law at that point. So, but these are fundamental because these help with us in our own evolution of our consciousness and our spirit. And using them properly, understanding them properly, and then helping teach others that are only interested, don't be evangelical, allows us to, really grow as human beings at an exponential rate. And I think this is a core part of higher density living here. We've, over all of our episodes, we've done a lot of background on stuff. We've done everything, in terms of consciousness, remote viewing, reincarnation, eating properly, all this other stuff. But at the core of all of these things lie these laws.
Right.
Right? Because you always got to get down to, if you always deduct down, you go down to the fundamentals, that deductive approach. This is where they land you. So it's important that we have this strong base because we don't want anyone building any sort of home, right? Home of consciousness, right? Or a school of consciousness that sits on top of a lacking foundation. You want your foundation to be strong, a rock, right? Immovable. And so if we can really integrate with these laws properly, you become immovable, right? And you can recognize that.
I pictured that the other day, and it was interesting because I thought that exact same metaphor that you used, but the metaphor happened this way for me. So somebody was building this house on the sand, like a sandy beach, and then they realized, this was really cool. Then they realized that they were building on a false foundation.
Yes.
And in my mind, I watched the sand go away. And what they didn't realize was that there was like Egyptian bricks on the very bottom.
Oh, that's cool.
So they were
digging,
but they realized that they thought that they were doing something. But then once the realization hit, then the foundation was revealed.
Yeah, this is a really interesting metaphor.
Yeah, but it's raising that you brought it up because I thought about it this week.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. We cannot, if we don't have a strong fundamental base to expand upon the rest of our life, a plant can't grow without roots that are properly rooted. It's the same thing, right? We can do this metaphor a million times, and that's why even that as an example, you look to nature and its laws and then how they apply to you, because we're all bound by it. Right. You're not a special person made up of special atoms and you fall under your own law of special physics. You know what I mean? It's like, no, absolutely
I don't
not.
see anyone flying around.
Yeah. You see a guy just floating around with his thoughts?
Yeah. I don't see any X-Men.
No, I see zero X-Men.
Yeah.
I don't see any mutants coming around. Nothing.
No, nothing. Yeah.
Okay. There's just things that happen naturally. And so let's look to that balance, a natural balance. So that being said, today I want to focus on the law of striving.
Yes.
And striving is not a negative term. Striving it's about growth, and it requires, self-responsibility. Striving is evolution. It's something that the universe does. It's something that we do, something that you sitting here listening to this episode are doing for yourself with your own thoughts, right? Your consciousness is striving to learn more. You're trying to expand. You're trying to grow, like inflate, right? It's always, we're trying to gather as much learning material as possible, integrate it, boil it down, distill it, and then come back and be like, does this work? And then reapply it, right? Through our cause and effects that we talked about in the last episode.
But there's something, Alex, when I want to distinguish two things. The people that are listening to this are people that are out there that are studying and learning and wanting to grow and expand and are striving for that.
Sure.
That makes you unique in a way that there are, I don't know what percentage, maybe less than 10% of people who are actually wanting to understand and know more, that are willing to walk the cliff's edge.
That's the striving.
As we say.
Yeah.
And I just want to kind of give a shout out to everyone, because people get so discouraged, like they're bouncing from one book to the next book, going from, I may be studying mystical Christianity the next day. And then, as mentioned to you, Sufism, but these are all good things. You're learning, and you're going to learn on your own pace, your own time, in your own evolution. And we'll get into that. As long as you're willing to be open. And I want you to correct me, because I used the word before off the air. We were talking about this, and I said be obedient to the laws, but I don't like the word obedient.
Obedience not the right word to use, okay? Because obedience says that you do not have free will.
Yes.
You do not have choice. And we'll later one of the episodes, and we've talked about free will before, but we're going to really dig down to it in this Creational series on the law of free will. And to say that you have to be obedient to the laws, well, that's not true. It's recommended that you follow the thing that gives you life, that allows you to animate yourself and live in this world and breathe and function biologically, physically, mentally.
I think it's, in a positive way, just a realization of understanding the law more and more as you grow.
Yeah, and you grow, right? But you have to grow in understanding. Plants have to grow. They have to evolve. They strive to grow, right? They're going to pull in as many resources as possible. The stalk will grow, through the chaff or whatever it might be. Say it's like a wheat crop. And up at the top is when you actually get the fruit. And what happened was you took in all of this stuff into a singular, beautiful, solid foundation. But up at the top, now you can multiply the fruits of that labor. You can actually expand upon it, right? Because now you can sow the seeds of that learning in all these different areas. I hope that's a good metaphor. But when you talk about obedience says there's a lack of free will. What I'm saying is, if you naturally look at what we are, bound by, right? Just the laws of physics, nature, everything else that is happening, well, then don't fight that. Okay. It's recommended that you go with it because it'll make your life a lot easier. It doesn't make learning easier, but it's not going to put unneeded hindrances on your own evolution that don't need to be there. Is that clear?
Yes, and I'm glad you said easier. I like that word, because I always try to kind of take things and put it. you're not studying for the effect for your life to be easier.
No.
In fact, it may, if you want to use the word easy or hard, you becoming more enlightened
actually it makes life more difficult.
Or your consciousness is evolving. It can make life
in some
cause
aspects.
and effect. Yeah, it can make life extremely hard because the person you've been married to for 20 years, you may be at that level now where you're like, this is toxic.
Wow, this is not good. You become deeper realizations. And what you'll find through the striving, through this evolution, is that as you're evolving, the polarity or the good that is being built in you, right? Those positive energies, they need to be balanced.
Yes.
The universe requires balance. So you're going to actually be faced with very strong negative things that will come at you because it has to meet an equilibrium. And only until you realize that negative, neutralize it and step above it. And the neutralization is an integration of understanding.
But that's what Charles Darwin talks about that with evolution. You know, you have to have the struggle. You have to have the negative to grow.
Listen, that is one, maybe I read all of The Origin of Species. Terrible book. But that might be one
he recanted it all on his deathbed, I've heard.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. Yeah, that must have been tough for him. He didn't evolve. He probably withered quicker. He's like, wow, that was terrible. I can't believe I wrote that. But the point is that that's probably one thing he did say that had some truth to it, right? But when we look at the polarity, the nature of balance, right? People love the yin and yang,
right?
You know, that black and white. You need to find that balance, and the balance only happens through striving. And the only way you can equalize a thought in the evolution of your consciousness is to take it for what it is as a learning moment. Okay?
Yes.
And in order for you to evolve, that means you need to integrate the knowledge of that learning moment. So the next time something like that comes around, you don't have the same emotional charge, right? You receive it in the proper perspective that needs to be received in. So now it's no longer a difficulty.
Yeah, that shitty thing that happened to you actually is a learning moment.
It's a learning moment.
And you recognize it, and it diffuses all of that craziness and chaos and ego that goes in your head.
Yeah, it becomes much more straightforward and apparent and obvious for what's really the cause and effect.
Which creates self-awareness,
creates
higher consciousness.
Which creates higher consciousness, right? So this striving. So when we break this down, I typed up some notes here. So if you want to go through some of the sentences, I can help kind of explain what's going on here. I didn't curate all this. This is a culmination of things that I've read, but I put it together that all fall under the general theme of what this law of striving or evolution might be.
So the law of striving evolution, here we go. And I'll stop.
I like when you read. It actually makes me feel good. I feel like I'm in story time.
It's boys and girls, it's story time. So achieve relative absolute fulfillment of one's spirit and consciousness. So in the end, we'll explain the end here in a second. So in the end, all will integrate with that from which is hence came creation.
Okay. So relative absolute fulfillment and integration to that from whence we came. I did write that. What I am saying here is that we are an assimilation of all of this material of creation. We can never be more than creation because we are a piece of it. Okay. So that if you think about it, if it envelops everything, we as ourselves cannot envelop everything. We are but a blip, right? Like a friggin' pimple on a gnat's ass.
Right.
That's how small we are, but we are part piece. We carry all those characteristics. So when I say that we're moving to relative absolute fulfillment, what that means is like you're almost up at the line when you integrate back with creation, where you've evolved so much over your period of birth and rebirth, right? That reincarnation, you've done it so many times with so much learning, so many different steps you've gone through, so many different integrations that you've moved up to relative absolute perfection. Because you're never at perfection. You're not at the level of complete and total integration with whence you came. But you're always moving to that point. And so that's because we're a piece of creation, creation has sent out pieces of itself to go learn. It's like a freaking fantastic, computer system if you thought about it in that metaphor. Where it's like, it's
a perfect AI system.
And I want everyone to understand here, these laws that we're bound by, well, the creation's also bound by. Okay. It's not to say that it lives outside of the laws. It's like, no, it's bound by the things that it also created. Otherwise, in physics, things would fold in on itself.
Right.
It literally, the universe would fold in on itself and it wouldn't exist.
In the story of Jesus, because I know you've been studying that.
Yeah.
When we look at Jesus being God in the flesh, according to the Bible, this is a perfect example. Being God in the flesh and then coming down as ultimate creation is how he would, and then bound. Now he's in human form, so he's bound by the laws here on earth.
Correct.
So he's not going to go flying around.
No.
I mean, he did miracles and stuff like that, but in the sense of he's going to walk when he didn't really need. He could have hovered around. He didn't have to eat.
No, but he's bound in this material.
I'm talking with that story.
Yeah, with that story, right? And so if we go into that context, this is the level of learning that we're at.
Right.
And if we want to get to the level of changing our locomotive function where we move ourselves just by thought alone, that's going to take a lot of evolution. It's going to take a lot of learning. That's going to take a lot of realizing what the real thing, the real power of the universe is. And so the point here is that in that first sentence, when we go back to whence we came, that means we're evolving to the state of going back to the thing we came from. So it being a perfect computer system, it's like, how do I evolve the quickest? Why don't I create a ton of tiny copies of myself, send it out there, have it go learn, assimilate the knowledge, and then when it's done, bring it back to me.
But physics proved this because if we're ever expanding and creation is ever expanding, as it's gaining higher consciousness, then we're never really going back to a pinpoint. I don't want people to think when they're going back, like they're going back to the past to a pinpoint.
No.
It's
when you say when you go back to whence it came, what I'm saying is you're not going back to some little point sitting somewhere in the universe.
It's not like, we want to be in the 1800s again.
No.
So let's have cowboys and Indians.
The spirit and the consciousness have elevated to this incredible spirit realm, which creates and sits in this pure creational energy.
Yes.
The question is, how close can we get to that pure creational energy that split itself down to give us the energy who we are to be a human being and to reincarnate and learn all these lessons? How do we get back to that? That's the whence it came. So that's explaining that first sentence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
All right, cool.
I think, and I like the word that you said, integrate.
Yes.
I think that's a very important word in the sentence.
Integrating is super, super important because a lot of people say like, I overcame that. This is the struggle, like blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, if you overcome something, that means you've squandered and hid it and put it somewhere because you didn't fully understand it for what it was. When you integrate, you have to know the cause and effect of what that thing was. You really need to truly understand its energies, its motives, everything about it, because once you do understand it, you integrate it into your consciousness. Now you realize what it is, how it acts, how it functions, so that you can live with it. Not try and bury it somewhere and wait for it to come back up, right? You can't kill something that's evil, right, or negative. It's just, it is what it is. So take it for what it is. And an
acceptance of that.
Right.
And then going towards that. Great. I heard a story yesterday, which was awesome, where they were talking about people in the African bush and stuff like that.
I love that term.
I know,
the African bush. Oh my God.
I know. It just brings you back to like these khakis. Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's just awesome. I know you do the didgeridoo. So
I love the didge.
So, but they were saying go towards the roar of the lion, which is totally, so basically what happens is a female lion will go far to a pinpoint, go far away from, but kind of get near where the animals are and then start roaring a bunch. And then there'll be a pack of lions. Is it a pride of lions? A pack of, I don't know what they call them. I don't know. But there'll be a group of lions because they know once she roars, all the animals are going to run away, but they're going to run right into the pack. So what these experienced bushmasters, so is that what they call them? They always go towards the roar because they know there's only one female lion there.
I want to be called an experienced bushmaster.
If
there's one title I want on my headstone, it's experienced bushmaster.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
No, but continue with your metaphor, please.
No, but I mean, our human perception would be to overcome, to be fear-based, whatever it may be. We would go we would run away just as those animals did in that level of consciousness. We would run away from that roar.
Yes.
But when you integrate, the roar becomes an opportunity.
That's what it is.
You see what I'm saying?
Instead of it being a fear negative-based approach, when you integrate it, that opportunity then becomes something positive. You've neutralized the fear, and now you know how to use that to your advantage.
Now you level up.
Yeah, you're leveling up the consciousness.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That was good. That was nice. What's our next one? This is fun. I'm enjoying this.
The next one, the way of its own evolution was given to it in order to evolve itself in its inner life sense. So,
sounds insane, right?
Yeah. So the way of its own evolution, let's stop there and go into the way.
Yes.
Because the way is a very important word here.
Yeah, way, right? Or the German word is wise. Okay. So what is the wise in which something does something? What it's saying is it is bound by this striving. It has to strive within itself. Okay. So the way it does it is by following those natural creational laws. Otherwise, if it doesn't follow them, it can't evolve properly. It can't evolve efficiently. Okay. And it will never get to the state of relative absolute perfection that it needs to be in. So the wise is saying that if you're going to evolve, it would be in the best interest to follow these laws.
Right. And like a tree that's malnutritioned, buried in concrete partially, its root system's really shallow.
Bothers me. I hate seeing that.
And then we see a windstorm that we had last night. And then next thing you know, you wake up in the morning and that tree's laying on the ground.
Correct.
It's the way of its own evolution was not striving because of the shallowness of the root system. And I see so many, I want to put this down in layman's terms. I see so many people that are basing everything, whether it's through religion or whatever it may be. Maybe it's their own ego, just striving for sex, money,
materialistic things.
Yeah, materialistic things.
And
and you're literally trying to put your roots in concrete. And the minute that you get any type of win, guess what's going to happen?
You're going to fall over.
When what you're talking about is aligning with creation. Hopefully I'm using the right word. Aligning with creation, and as it's expanding and growing, you're expanding and growing and moving with these laws, like jellyfish.
We have another law, the law of motion, right?
Yes.
And what you find is that all of these laws they can't contradict one another.
Yes.
Otherwise, it wouldn't be a law, right?
Right.
So if I say a law, well, that law has to affect another one, which then also affects the preceding.
Right. They're holistic. They move inside of each other together.
That's an excellent way of explaining
because
that.
Then you would go against the free will of the creation.
Yeah, and you don't want to be doing that.
So it would be, and then it would be false.
And nothing's real at that point.
Yeah, nothing.
There is no reality.
So the way of its own evolution was given to it. So how was it given?
Yeah, it was given.
That's a key word.
So creation created the laws. It chose how it wanted to evolve.
Right.
So it gave itself these evolutionary principles.
Right.
That's what that is saying. It's not like somebody just came down like a higher being handed it to. It's like, no, this time we're going to test it out in this format. These are going to be the rules of this universe. And we're going to see what I can learn with this set of rules. And that's what it's doing. It gave it to itself, this set of rules, which it is bound by. And it gives it to all of us so that we can follow it to see that what we can learn and integrate from it.
I think it's more than just following. When I read this, and I was studying this afternoon, when I read it and you said gave itself, I was thinking like that is our life's mission.
It is your
to
mission.
Give ourselves to creation.
Well, that's what we're doing. We're trying to, if you go back to the very first one, we're trying to get back to relative absolute perfection. Right. We're trying to get to that point of evolution. We're trying to go back to from whence it came, right? And that's the idea. And anything we do that strays from that path,
right,
is the wrong thing to do.
No, because we're not giving.
It's an unloving path,
right?
If we don't follow that.
I'm going to oversimplify this. We're not giving. We're taking.
Yeah, we're taking.
We're trying. We're perceiving as taking.
Yeah,
when we're actually not taking, because you can't take from creation.
No,
I mean, because creation in and of itself is itself.
It is itself.
And like you said, we're on the small gnat.
Yeah.
To think that we're getting over on, that's what I'm saying.
It's never going to happen.
We live these.
You can't get over on the thing that set the rules for the game.
It's like these CEOs that will turn around and at the very end, before they have to report on their phone calls, and they still pick up the old phones, which is so funny to me.
Love that.
To their shareholders meetings, but they turn around and buy stock back.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, at the end of the month, that they've made all these, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
You cheated the system.
Yeah.
You've moved numbers around.
But those moving those numbers around, that's not a reality.
No, it's
that's
not.
Their false reality.
Yes.
Right? You can't get over on the craps table against the casino. It has set rules and regulations.
Oh, here we go.
Okay. And what happens if you start to go against it? You lose. First of all, you're going to start losing money.
Yeah.
Okay, when you try and cheat it, the pit boss is going to beat you to a pulp and then throw you out of there.
Yeah.
So you essentially are hurting yourself by going against these disingenuine, non-realistic ideologies, ways, religions, dogmas, perspectives that actually don't align with the most obvious observational things that are around you.
Which you say, because you're hurting yourself. I like that. Let's take that hurting yourself. And then listen, you say this, was given to in order to evolve itself in its inner life sense.
Yes, in the inner life sense. And the inner life is the consciousness and the spirit.
Right.
So you are only hurting your own evolution by going against this. To say that I'm not gonna follow what's obvious and right in front of me. I'm gonna do something else that I think is how it should be. But
so let's look at inner life self.
Yeah.
So
that's what we do on HDL. We only look at the inner life self.
Yeah. So and I know we've said this a million times, but I want us to just briefly pause here for a second, go back into it, and I want to hammer this in people's heads enough that they understand. Because this revolutionized my life when I began to really understand that, is that everything is inside of you. The toolkit, all the tools to put, if you have, those little plastic models, I was looking at one the other day that were super intricate and people are paying $100-something and it literally takes, hundreds of hours and they got the little missiles.
That's what you've been doing with your free time.
No, I don't have any of those. But I do models. And I shake my little tush on the sidewalk. I'm a model. Remember that song? Oh, I got you to crack up. That was Right Said Fred, by the way. Dun, dun, dun. You remember that song?
We are de-evolving.
Yes, we are de-evolving. So, no. But the inner self, everything is in you.
All of it.
All of it. You don't need.
But we've muddied the waters inside of us, right? And we don't need anything else on the outside. We don't need all these material things, right? All we need is experience. That's all we need, because the experience helps us brighten and it helps us grow that energy, that growth internally within us.
I still keep thinking the song's running in my head while you're talking. That music while you were talking, I was like going. It was actually going pretty good. I would love. I mean, YouTube would kick us off because we're using the song.
Yeah,
but I would love to put that in here. It would be awesome.
That'd be cool.
Right, said Fred.
Yeah, I want everybody to play that while they're listening to that one piece.
Okay, so next one.
Yeah, please go ahead.
We're going heavy into these.
I like this.
Yes, we're just going off the cuff too.
Yeah.
My other notes I'm not going to be able to get to. It's already 30 minutes into this. The creation also has to achieve the following of the same laws and recommendations.
Correct.
Through which it solely is able to enliven its existence towards true existence. So explain to me, enliven its existence towards, because I'm thinking forward, true existence.
Okay. Hold on to your pants.
Okay.
Okay.
I am.
So creation
Right.
sits underneath an umbrella of all of this energy. So creation is just our universe. Okay. That's what this term is describing. Universal laws, creational laws, natural laws, those are all sitting in the same tier. But that pure energy, that pure unadulterated, just unstructured energy that just sits there, that's what the creation is trying to get to. It needs to evolve to that more absolute perfect state. So as we as human beings go through this process with our spirit, the creation as a totality of spirits in itself has to go through that process also. So when I say that it's bound by the laws, well, it also has to evolve. It also needs to grow and, I don't want to say die. It's because it doesn't die, it sleeps. It needs to grow and sleep, like almost like breathing.
Right.
Our lungs contract and expand.
It's we work out and then we rest and we grow in the rest.
All that right there, as an example, is bound to us, the trees, the creation, or this universe, and it is trying to evolve itself to the next state. Okay, that's what it's getting to, and that's what we're stating here, is that not only are we bound by it, but it is also in trying to move to that more perfect state.
And as this is a big word, insignificance, in a positive way. So because like you said, how many billions of planets are there out there? We don't even know. They said every time they look at the universe, it expands 10x.
Yeah, 10 to the 49.
So whenever you think of one planet, Earth, and then you look at our small solar system, which they said there's millions of solar systems just like ours.
Right.
And then from there, it just keeps going and going. How insignificant we are, but how significant we think we are when it comes to us saying we don't need this.
Yeah, no, we're so delusional because we are a blip.
Right.
But there's such a mass.
Yes.
Huge mass of stuff.
Yeah.
That is bound by that.
There could be 10 million Earth planets with 9 billion people on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to say that we shouldn't follow, or at least try and align ourselves with these laws, that would be very idiotic of us.
Yeah. I could just imagine if creation could look at us and then say, "Oh, you're American?"
Yeah, I know exactly.
And you're basing your whole life on being an American? Well, there's
your
these other
label
guys.
Is so
there's these other guys. I know, or borders.
Yeah.
All that stuff
what
becomes
is a border?
Insignificant.
What happens is you start to get, and people are like, well, that's it's such a hippie state. Well, it's not really a hippie state. It's a very realistic state that nobody owns anything.
No.
Labels are stupid.
Yes.
And to say that, we are the end all be all is ridiculous. Listen.
Talk to that lion that's wanting to eat you.
Yeah.
In the bush.
And it's just doing what nature does.
I know, but talk to him and say, no, I'm a billionaire. Here's all the stock options I have.
He'll eat the billionaire just as much as the malnourished child over there.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And
it doesn't have any.
It makes no difference. But listen, we are evolving and creation is evolving.
Mm-hmm.
And if creation didn't need to evolve, we wouldn't exist. There would be no point of us reincarnating. None of this stuff would even have any point to it if it didn't have to evolve in itself.
That's what your next
If
post.
it was done evolving, everything stops. It rests. There's no motion. The evolution is done. But that's not the case.
No.
Because we learn every single day. Not one human being out here is perfect.
No.
We are making mistakes all day long.
That's why, especially what's going on now, it's so pertinent. I was talking to someone the other day and they were just getting so amped up with all that's going on. And I'm like, you're putting judgment towards it.
Yeah.
And you can't.
You really can't.
To see a guy take a brick and throw it through a Nike store,
yeah.
Or to watch, this, go on Twitter and you see these, mass pilings on and then deplatforming people and, are taking celebrities. And the next thing they're not a celebrity anymore. And then they're with their identity. And then, it's just so funny to me, the ecosystems that we've built to protect us from having the ability to understand this.
And those systems that we built they completely lack any value.
Any value. When I'm
talking about nil. They have zero value.
Twitter in the scheme of
oh gosh.
And so here, listen to this. Everything existing in the nature, here's the next one. Everything existing in the nature, that's a big statement. And in the entire universe.
Everything.
And within the creation itself. And so therefore, you put a comma here, also the entire life and being, and you capitalize being.
Being's important because when I talk about when being is in caps, it speaks to a higher form of energy. It speaks to a totality, a spiritual totality. When something's in lowercase, it doesn't have the amount of value to it because it's more material sense. Right. Okay? It's not just being like I'm living. No, this is the being. This is the totality of life. That's why it's in caps.
And all existence of all life forms consists in the striving in fundamental and groundbreaking form. And then you wrote in the striving for the future, in the striving for the higher things, for evolution, for the highest possible, absolutely full development. Yeah. So let's break down, because you say consists in the striving in fundamental and groundbreaking form.
Yes. Okay. At the lowest level, even like, atoms and things of that nature, they're rearranging themselves into states of equilibrium. They are always evolving in their states. Okay. And then from that fundamental aspect of it, it becomes groundbreaking only at the point when we've integrated so much knowledge through our evolution that we can be like, this are the new steps we need to take. We need to break ground here. This is the groundbreaking thing. This is the thing that shifts our reality from what it actually was.
But the atom that's evolving or the Dalai Lama.
Yeah.
It's all striving.
All of it is striving. The atom is striving to be with other atoms.
Right.
Like we are striving to evolve and be with people we like. And then, our spirit is trying to get back to creation. Well, the atom's just trying to group with other atoms, that it needs to be around. It doesn't have any conscious thought to it. So its striving is a little different, but at a fundamental level.
That's what I'm saying. At a fundamental level, the creation, that's probably the wrong word, but I'm going to use it, rewards striving.
Of course it does, because that's the reward to itself.
As the Dalai Lama preaches love all the time.
Yeah.
And he said, after everything that I've ever done and all that I am, he goes, the number one thing that I could teach is love. When you look at that, that's striving.
Of course it's striving, because love means he understands, he integrates constantly.
Yes.
And that means he's in a state of self-awareness and constant evolution.
As the atom is.
As the atom is. They're constantly moving. They're constantly evolving to new group states, right? New phase states. As atoms rearrange themselves into different atomic makeups, you get new elements.
Yes.
Everything's always evolving.
Right.
And then we can evolve those elements into a new type of material. So even at a fundamental level, with things that don't have animation that we have, or don't have a consciousness, right, in a certain aspect, they all evolve too. Everything is all evolving. Consider the Earth's crust, right? And I keep looking at this mountain painting, and now I understand why I was looking at it. Is the Earth's crust is evolving. It's constantly growing. The peaks get higher and higher and higher, right? It's always changing its state. It's always reaching up to this. It's called the Ziel, right? That's a German word for it. And it's that pinnacle point.
Right.
It's the absolute, the cusp of achievement. It's like, it's right there. It's the Ziel. And that's what it's doing. And a mountain is a beautiful natural metaphor for that thing that we are doing ourselves. But the Earth is just doing it much, much slower. The thing is, how do we get to that point? How do we get through that striving? How do we alter our fundamental base, break the ground and shift it so that we can get to a higher point?
So it says, we've gone hiking and stuff like that, and you always leave me in the dust to the cougars and the bears. But whenever you look at hiking, you can look at the mountain as creation and us as beings climbing that mountain.
We are a piece of that.
Yes.
Right.
And then we are going to that pinnacle.
Let's use the mountain, because all these laws,
we're striving to get there.
All these laws are intertwined. So when it rains on the mountain,
right.
Okay, it pulls the nutrients in the water and it feeds the vegetation, cools, sets the atmosphere for the area. It allows us to hold moisture around here. Other crops can grow. That stuff gets washed down to us. And we use that to then ingest and evolve ourselves in a material aspect. Right. So yeah, we are very much a part of that mountain, that creation that sits there in front of you. It's all interconnected. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It's an ecosystem that is constantly changing.
It's in constant motion, and that's our other episode. We'll talk about law of motion later.
Yeah, and it's so funny how striving and motion kind of just they're right there. They're right there.
But you can't have a striving without cause and effect, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're all
and without understanding a unification, right?
Right.
Having a free will to make those choices for your cause and effect, then you can't really integrate. You can't love.
It's like taking a strand of rope and then interweaving it together. And then how strong does that rope become if you took 8 strands?
Extremely strong.
You took 16 strands.
The tensile strength increases significantly.
Exactly.
By a factor of 20. No,
so whenever we look at each of us as we're evolving and moving and growing and striving, and then we intertwine together as a collective, what do we look like? The 16 strand.
Yeah,
how strong do we become?
Extremely strong, because if we're all striving,
right,
following these laws and recommendations, right, living by them, these things that we are naturally bound by, we find great strength. We build that foundation, not a foundation on sand, but on true heavy granite stone.
Yes.
Permanent, immutable, timeless stone. And that's what we got to get to.
So you say for the highest possible, absolutely full development. So you use the word absolute.
Yeah,
and use the word full.
Yeah, absolute. And fullness means fullness. You have to think about
not like it's full and done.
No, not full and
like
done.
I'm full and I'm done eating. I'm full, so I'm done.
No.
I knew what you were talking about.
Full is like it's like a metaphysical sense of size.
Yes.
Right. There's a fullness to it.
Right.
There's a wealth of growth and energy that sits within it. It gets to a point of absolute. It's where there's only so much air you're pushing into this balloon. There's a fullness to it, and you can feel it. When it becomes full, it's rounded. So in every single direction, people become well-rounded. Remember I said that if you look at someone like that's a really well-rounded individual. Well, sure, they've integrated a lot of their experience. They're evolving wonderfully. They're not, like a doctor, I specialize in only like a certain bone within the ankle for doing surgeries. Well, what help is that if I'm having a heart attack? Like if I'm on the road, right, and I got in a car accident and the guy's like, I'm an ankle doctor. That's not funny.
No, that's not going to.
That doesn't make me feel good, right? So what we found is that with a lot of how we've designed our lives in society is that we focus on very finite, tiny, tiny little things. But
we specialize.
We specialize so much, but that over-specialization breeds in weakness. Mm-hmm. I've said this a long time ago in one of our earlier podcasts, because you lack the fullness. You lack that relative absolute growth, that perfection. And so you're off balance. There's no equilibrium to you. The number one equilibrium in a sphere is dead in the center. It's where the force of all points, an infinite number of points, is always right there in the center. Well, that's what you want to be. You want to have that fullness, that roundness, that beauty.
So, and I think this goes right into the next one. You say striving is the power of the life in the sense of progress.
Yes, it is. It is a sense of progress. So even you talked about dopamine hits.
Yes.
Okay, so if we're like achieving something, we get
playing a video game,
or you get the gamification on an app, whatever it might be, or even winning money I'm saying winning on purpose in the stock market because it's a gamble. You get that dopamine hit.
Right.
It's that sense of progress that something is happening. And through the trials and tribulations that we go through, and we talked about how, the more you evolve, the harder the more negative or reverse polarity comes to you. When you achieve over that, you feel great.
What type of game would it be if you didn't have harder levels?
Well, think about us. Why do we upgrade our cars? Why do we upgrade our homes? Why do we try and upgrade our thinking or read better books or, converse with better people?
Why do we get conversion vans that are campers?
In a material sense, we're always evolving, but what we've missed is our spiritual evolution.
Right.
And the spiritual evolution happens through our consciousness and an integration of understanding. So we have to go back and look at that. Everything is always trying to progress. Always. Everything we do is progression.
So once again, I'm going to kind of put it in earthly plane. Earth. Yeah. So progress, and you're doing an amazing job in talking about this too, by putting that word progress. I think is a great word for us here on earth.
Yeah.
And our cultural, especially, here in America, or you go to China or India, you're seeing these countries that are trying to progress.
Yeah.
But materialistically and stuff like that. But striving is the power of the life in the sense of progress. So I like the word power because that creates this ability to not be a victim. If you look at,
that's a good way of putting it.
If you look at what's happening right now in the United States and the division that is being created, you're seeing a lot of people try to identify as victims, whether whatever it may be. The police are playing a victim. Black Lives Matters is playing victim. You see all these, and it's we so want to play the victim. You know what I mean? We so want, instead of turning around and saying
it's an easy way out.
How can we? Yes, it's an easy way out instead of striving.
It's a non-evolutionary way.
You can quit the game.
It's static.
You can put the controller down.
That's what I mean. It's static. There's no movement.
Yeah.
You stop growing. You stop learning. And people think by playing the victim, things will change. Nothing changes at that point.
No.
The universe requires your action. It requires your involvement. You're being born and being here in this world. You have to move, because if you don't move, you die.
And it's 100% your responsibility.
No one's walking your legs for you.
No.
You need to take those steps forward.
But that's what we want. We want that security. We want
when
somebody
you do that, the second you do that, you stop evolving.
You give up your free will.
You know what this reminds? If you give up your free will, you know what this reminds me of? All these laws linking together. It's like you want to talk about them all at once. When people retire, ew. Because what does retirement do? They say the work is done.
Yes, the work is done.
And when they stopped their physical labor, what they didn't realize is that physical labor was typically the only thing that was giving them any sort of...
Isn't it 5 years?
Yeah.
When they die?
Yeah, it's not good.
No.
Because there's a stopping of movement and the consciousness they stop learning. Their job was the only thing, no matter how minute it might have been or great, it was the thing that was forcing them to continue to learn. But theirs, like, my achievement is to retire and do nothing and not work and golf and fucking sit around and get fat and shit.
Watch Fox News or CNN.
Yeah, right. And then become dogmatic and biased and angry. But what's happening is is you stop that momentum. You stop that movement. You've stopped your striving. You've stopped your growth of relative absolute perfection.
And so now there's no power.
You've lost your power. In retirement, that's why it kills you so much quicker. It kills you in consciousness. It kills you in your spirit. I never, just in my,
no, same way. I never want to retire.
I never want to retire.
No.
I never want to stop learning. I
No.
never want to stop having a job.
We're built to work.
Because I lack, we are good working machines.
Because it's progress and it's striving. That's what work is.
That's what the
work is not a bad
progress is.
thing.
No, things have to work. They have to twist, move, momentum.
Yes.
You have to work at things. You have to cut back some of the, the crops that get out of control. You have to work at it. If you want to become a master at something, you have to put in the hours. You can't retire and then just be like, I'm going to be good at it.
Yeah.
No, everything requires work. It requires that striving, the progress, because we want to become perfect at it, right?
Right. It's always whenever you see, you were talking about a while back ago, you being in an art museum or whatever. I think it was in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think of when you see masters like painters and you don't realize the crying, the craziness, the chaos, the amount of the hundreds and hundreds or thousands of hours to get to this point where they die and they don't even realize it. And then later, 200-300 years later, we're like, this is a master. Why do we call it a masterpiece?
Yeah, it's a masterpiece because they've put that time and the effort in and it was only recognized later.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is, don't wait around 300 years till you're dead and gone to recognize what you need to do right now. The effort has to be put in now.
Yes.
You have to continue to evolve and strive. You never stop in that growth because the second you stop that growth is when you start dying. Look at a plant outside, even a weed. The second that weed stops pulling in nutrients or experience, right? I want you to consider experience and nutrients as the same thing. The second you stop pulling that in, you begin to wither. You won't bear fruit. You cannot evolve in your thought and your consciousness. You cannot sow the seeds. You cannot share that experience with others, right? Because you lack the fundamental base to support yourself anymore. Yeah,
and it's so funny whenever you talk to people or even in our own lives and we look at that and I hear the words I can't. Like, I can't do that or I'm not good at this.
Okay.
Those words alone are like
they're anti-striving.
With their victim, and then
they're anti-striving.
It's just like I don't have.
They've capped themselves.
Yes, which how can you cap yourself if all the universe is in you?
Yeah, and you don't honestly know. You don't realize that you have limitless potential.
Limitless.
You have limitless creativity.
Yes.
You have limitless amounts of love in you, but you put finite, rigid boxes around all this stuff and say, I can't go beyond
and
this.
you're trying to, you're 20, 30, 40, 80 years old. And you're taking that, we talked about this before there, you're taking that 80 years of your judgment of what you feel is reality. And then turning around and making this such a nasty, dogmatic, dirty word in the sense of saying, I'm not good at.
Yeah.
It's just funny how we limit ourselves and how we're so quick to limit ourselves.
We're very self-limiting, and self-limiting stops momentum.
Right.
It stops cause and effect. It stops learning.
And that's why I wanted to bring to the next one, because there's a word with the self-limiting that's going to go hand in hand with this. We strive for fulfillment, self-limiting fulfillment, material and spiritual.
Yes.
You don't see fulfillment when you're being self-limiting.
No, there's no fulfillment in self-limiting, right? And what we found is we lack a balance. We're only materially fulfilling ourselves, but we still feel empty on the inside. Why are people still depressed when they have all these great material goods and all that money? Is because they fulfilled one aspect, but they didn't fulfill the other one. The one that actually...
They're out of balance.
That enlivens them. They're completely out of balance. And that leads your mind to be out of balance. You cannot strive properly. It's like a plant, or how would I describe this? It's like a leaning tree.
Right.
Right? You're just waiting for one windstorm to push it over. It's leaning. It doesn't.
Well, when you're unbalanced, you're susceptible. For me, whenever I'm unbalanced, then I'm susceptible to take the power that's in me away and make judgments on myself, and then allow myself to not have inertia.
Yeah, you've stopped that inertia of progress.
Yes.
Right? You're saying, no, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I'm out of balance. Well, you are out of whack.
Right.
You've great. Love your Audi Q7,
right,
Sport Edition, whatever it is, but you act like a bad person.
Yes.
You have no morals and no ethics.
Well, it's because the identity is in the outie.
The identity is only in the material aspect. There's an imbalance of identity too.
And that doesn't create fulfillment when your identity, like you said, is not in the inner self.
No, and fulfillment is the striving. It is your own evolution.
Yes.
You cannot fully fulfill yourself.
That's deep.
It's really deep stuff, and it's so interlinked. It's actually a lot of fun to talk about.
Yeah. So next, all being, capital B-E-I-N-G.
Thank you.
Is striving, and all striving is once again capital being. All being is striving, and all striving is being.
Correct. So what that is saying is that all of creation is constantly evolving. And we as pieces of creation, right? We as evolutionary pieces are going back to creation. That statement has perfect balance. The reason it has the inverse is because the laws are applicable on both sides, right? So creational energy has to evolve, and that evolution is us, and that we evolving is also creation in itself.
Yeah, I always liked, when I read this, I thought of those magnetic motors. And they've always tried. I know that they have them where they, I think Georgia Tech or somebody has one that's been running since the 1800s, and it uses its own energy to run, and then it just continually.
Right. So people are always looking for that. What's the 0 point?
Yes.
But we live in a system of certain frictions, right? So having that perfect balance will never happen. Well, I'm not saying won't. Right now, we don't have the material understanding. We have not fulfilled ourselves scientifically enough in our own progress to understand how to get to
but
that
don't you think that potential is there to be at 0?
Sure.
We'll never get there, but that inertia to start that is our striving.
Yeah, but we had to start it.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
We had to strive to build the machine.
Right.
We had to strive to get that ball rolling, or the magnetic motor, whatever it might be. A perpetual motion machine is what they call them. And that requires that striving. It's like, let's take our creational energy, our thought, our creativity, build something, evolve, learn from that evolution, and see if we can get back to that perfect state. That's all it is.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, how many times did we just stop it? It's like, it's going.
Yeah, I got to throw the brake.
Put my hand right on it and stop it. And so then it's just stagnant. And also what I saw was, it was really interesting. All being is striving, and all striving is being. Yeah. So when I read this, what I pictured is the yin and yang, and then it's circulating in a perfect circumstance, undulating. And then it changing and morphing at like that black and that white. It's just constantly going like this.
It's undulating.
And then, undulating. Yeah.
It's constantly finding new states of equilibrium, right?
And we have not taken any psychedelics when we're talking about this.
And you said,
because that sounds so.
Yeah, that was
it's
crazy.
Like, hey man,
yeah, hey, that sounds kind of cool. That
it's going black
like
and white and white and black.
I don't know how we got purple out of that.
We do have some caffeine in our coffee.
Yeah, that was about it. But you use the word stagnation.
Yes,
stagnation is non-striving. Let's talk about things that stagnate: dead bodies, rot.
Oh, I like in you were in Florida.
Yeah.
Those murky ponds.
You don't want to go in there. It has all that really bad bacteria and algae, right?
Stinks.
So when there's a lack of movement, things don't breathe. When there's stagnation, you find death.
Yes.
Okay. Whether it's in those Irish, what the hell are they called? What are they called? Swamps. Right? You find the swamp bodies up there. That's stagnation. Bogs. There's no change. No. There's no material movement, and you only find death, right? If there's no growth or striving, your fruit, if they're not fulfilling themselves on the tree, they're just sitting in the fridge. Mm-hmm. They grow old, they grow mold, and they die. Something else has to take over and flush it out.
But even that, I had an onion in my fridge, and it's in there for a while, and I actually put it in my little plant, because what was it trying to do?
It wants to strive.
Yeah, and so it was creating these little roots.
We put it in an environment where we force stagnation.
Yes.
We force it to be like, no, you can't do anymore. Right?
That's why the belief of the environment that you're in is false.
Yes.
When you begin to understand the true environment that you're in, when you begin to understand what creation is, then you break free.
If you're an onion bulb.
Yeah, if you're an onion bulb.
Get out of the refrigerator.
Yes.
And put yourself in the soil.
Yeah. Get in the sunlight.
Get in the sunlight with the rain and fresh air.
Isn't that amazing that fresh air and sunlight is like the number one enemy of COVID?
Oh, I love
Imagine that.
Isn't that so funny?
It doesn't exist in sunlight. It's like sunlight kills it instantly. Imagine that.
Isn't it so?
Isn't it funny how it's saying people?
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how is it a bacteria?
No,
virus?
It's a virus.
Yeah.
It's a virus.
Isn't it funny how it's saying to us, go outside.
Enjoy
nature.
It's forcing us to move. But in our earlier states, we chose stagnation. You know, what do they call it? Something at home.
Well, we chose to sit inside our house and do Zoom meetings.
Well, and again, that weakens our state. Our body asks for movement. It asks for interaction. And we have the law of interaction. That's another one on there. I don't we're really getting into this. But again, that momentum, that fulfillment, that striving, that's what we're doing. And the virus wants to do it too. A virus doesn't want to kill.
Right.
Everyone, the news and everything, they said like the virus, it kills. No, it is just looking for a home.
Yeah, it wants to live.
It wants to live. It is striving to evolve.
And
that's why there's new strains. Oh, wow. Viruses are bound by the law too. Incredible.
Yes.
But, when we begin to look at it, we can really rearrange our perspective in our lives so that we fit in better with how these things work.
And brings us to the next point perfectly.
Go ahead.
You ready, Alex?
Yeah, I love the next point.
Being, lowercase, means the life within the existence of creation within its highest energy.
Yeah.
Being means, so you're given a definition of being, lowercase being. Being means the life within the existence of creation. And then this is an important word, within its highest energy.
Okay. So there's like a bubble within a bubble within a bubble. We are the being, the lowercase one. We're the life within.
How about that expanding balloon?
Within creation, right? We're within that expanding balloon. And that expanding balloon, it has to expand into something, right?
Right.
So just open up your mind for a second. If you're breathing into the balloon, right?
Right.
You're the life inside of it. Well, that balloon, the creation's expanding, but something is surrounding also that balloon.
Yes.
It has to swell and grow into something else. Are you picturing that in your mind?
Well, I'm also picturing that law of the atmosphere.
Yeah, it is really.
It's bound. That balloon is bound by that law that's external of it.
That's external of it.
But it's growing within that.
But it grows with it. It's crazy, right? It's a lot of fun. And these laws are a blast.
Right.
They truly are a blast. They're a lot of fun. And they're non-dogmatic, and they say, listen, if you abide by these things, if you integrate them with your life, it really is going to help you along.
So highest energy, what did you mean by highest?
The highest energy is the perfect absolute state. So remember how I said before,
that's zero?
Our creation is still evolving itself.
Right.
Well, it is still trying to evolve to that.
Why did you use the word energy?
Because that's what it is. It's nothing but energy.
Okay.
It's pure. It is pure creational energy.
Right.
Because our creation, our universe now is a material thing.
That's what somebody would call God or higher being.
You could try
universe.
Okay, so
if because
wish you didn't say that.
I know you don't like that.
The word God, from an etymological approach, okay, back to the Hebrews and then Proto-Germanic with that, is the term Yahweh, right?
Right.
And the term Yahweh is an incorrect pronunciation of YHWH, which actually translates to Isvich. Isvich in German is God. And that is a definition of somebody who is in an evolved higher state, but is not the creation itself.
Well, I know that because Jesus said that we could all be gods. Like we can.
Yeah, we can all be gods. That is very much true.
And all he's saying is as you evolve,
yes,
and as you're learning and striving,
yes,
and teaching and all these things, then you're becoming.
That's a truthful statement, right? And that's when to become an Isvich or a god, which actually translates to king of wisdom or queen.
Or that's
of wisdom.
Like a serious itch.
Yeah, it's a serious itch, right? So an Isvich or an Isrich, that pronunciation, that is that state of relative absolute perfection, right? That's that fulfillment.
So as we begin to strive, we're tapping into this highest energy.
That's exactly what you're doing.
And then as a crystal resonates,
yes, so
are we resonating with that energy. So then, like I bought a new crystal the day I set it outside. It was in the sun. Little things I do, for fun because I'm boring. And then I after I took it out, I set it in the sun all day long. Mm-hmm. And so the top of my knee was hurting. So I just let it sit on my knee for about 2 hours. And then I woke up in the morning and I was able to run, with knee pain. Now that belief system that I had in it, could that have created it? Am I taking this certain form of crystal and then putting...
No, you had a conscious will to self-heal. Did you not?
Yes.
You bought the crystal and put it on your knee. So your only
I just had the crystal, so I thought, well, I'm going to clean it in the sun. And
the intention of your will
Right.
was like, I want to balance the crystal.
Right.
And then I want that to help balance out myself.
Right.
You created a will and imparted that will on the crystal and your kneecap.
So I was blowing up the balloon.
Yes, you were blowing up the
That
balloon.
will was me.
That's precisely right.
Okay.
Nobody...
Because will is important in this law too.
Correct. So...
Because we got one more, so that's why
a farmer, we have time for this. I'm a little parable. A farmer goes to his first, he has 2 sons.
Right.
He goes to his first son. He asks him to come help him out on the farm. And the first son responds, I don't want to go. Or he says, I'll go, and then never shows up, right? That's what the first guy says. And then he goes to his other son, because the first one didn't show up. And he says, hey, I want you to come help me on the farm. And he says, I don't want to go, but I am going to show up. Okay. So the first one said, I'll go, doesn't show up. The second one states that I don't want to go, but shows up anyway.
Right.
Which one of them abided by the father's will?
Well, the father just said he wanted somebody to go. He didn't care about your will in the way that you wanted to go.
This is precisely right. Nobody abided by the father's will, even though one of them showed up.
Right.
The individual, through their own will, made the decision. Someone's will does not change your will. You are the life and being of your own will. You choose to do that striving.
But that's important. And I want us to stop here because this is going to help somebody right now. You may be that guy, that son that doesn't feel like it, but you do it anyways.
Correct.
And in that striving, even though you had a bad attitude for it, you still accomplished that. Yes. That's the sand, and then all of a sudden you think, and then now next thing you know, you see the big Egyptian
And you
blocks.
need to realize it wasn't the other person that put you through that striving. You made the conscious choice to do it, even though you didn't want to, but you did it anyway.
Because there's a lot of people that are out there like that.
You said, he made me do it. Well, he didn't make you do it. Nobody made you get up and go.
No.
You always have to remember that self-responsibility, that you chose to do that. You chose to take on that striving, that evolution, right? That's a very important piece of the self-responsibility, and that is the blowing up of that balloon. You, through your own conscious will, have chosen to strive, right? You've chosen to grow. And you always have to remember that everyone's on their own evolutionary path. We're all going to the same end game, but how we get there is all determined by our own will and the pace at which we want to do it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people want to play the game, but they're not really playing the game, like the first son.
Yeah. They want to play it, but they don't.
And that's what creates charlatans, fake, these religious leaders that are, next thing you know, you find out something super immoral is happening.
Yeah, or people say they're like channelers, they can talk to spirits, all that other stuff, but, maybe you're...
Yeah, I know, but I mean... And something comes out, and then truth prevails.
Truth always,
is
how do I say this?
The goal. It's like the gold standard.
Truth is always unfashionable.
Oh, yeah, it always is.
Always
it's countercultural.
Truth is always countercultural, but lies and deceit, they change, they go away, but the truth is immutable.
Yes,
it's immemorial. The truth never goes anywhere. The truth always is what it is. Is that clear?
Yeah, that's super clear. Because when I hear you say that, I look at stocks and purchasing them, and then you have short-term capital gains and long-term capital gains. So you're going to pay the price for that short-term gain because you're going to pay 40% in taxes.
Yeah.
So you could turn around and say, yeah, I bought these Intel puts and made $2,000 on them, but really you take the 40% away. And then you take having to deal with Uncle Sam and the rest.
You made $600.
Yeah, and you made $600. But you're going to run around and tell everybody how much you made.
Yeah.
Which is not truth.
No, it's an untruth.
Now, long-term, Intel keeps going and going and it's been around for 40 plus years. We're always going to have microchips, whatever. So you buy the long, you go long on that, and it always, with compound
interest.
Yes, it always seems to work out better than all these little quick rich schemes.
Compounding interest is so cool.
That's a law. That's got to be a law.
Yeah, it's a law that is in the law of striving.
Yeah.
Because what happens?
Because everything is compound interest. If I work out and do 50 push-ups every day in a year, I'm going to look totally different.
It compounds. If I'm going to integrate new lessons every single day, that will compound in my perspective.
Yeah. If you read 100 books, and you read a shitload.
Yeah.
If you're reading 100 books a year over 5 years and you read 500 books, that's compound interest.
It's massive compounding interest, right? And what it is progress. It's dopamine hits, man. It's that evolution.
Isn't it funny how our brain is geared for striving?
We are biologically geared for it, and we are spiritually geared for it.
And it's just funny because neuroscience right now, and this is a catchy thing, and I'm watching a lot of neuroscience stuff on neurology, I think it's which they hate that word, but it sounds like astrology or something. But and I watched this one guy, Dr. Andrew Huberman, amazing. He's at Stanford, and he's explaining it. And as he's sitting there explaining it, I'm like, neuroscience is proving creation. It's like right on point.
That's what physics is trying to get to.
Yes, they're like, quantum physics is doing the same thing.
Quantum physics is just they're trying to find the truth of creation, right?
It's like these.
You know what they're trying to do?
These scientists are our spiritual leaders right now.
Can you hand this to the physicists at Stanford and stuff? Be like, listen, guys, put your equations into that. Stop wasting your time.
Let's not do that crazy, what is it called? Bayesian model.
Yeah, let's not use a Bayesian statistical model. Let's use this.
The truth.
Yeah, let's use the truth.
Okay, last one, and then we'll be done. Because this will wrap it up perfectly. No stage of evolution, learning, or development can be skipped.
No. I'm so glad you said that. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. Listen.
I am.
Our life has very definitive steps.
Right.
And here's a good way for me to use this example is people that win the lottery. They've been poor their entire life, and they win this massive lump sum.
Right.
And what ends up happening? They spend it all and lose it. It's gone in a year.
They squander it all. Yeah.
Look at them. Look at all of the people that have won.
Probably 90%.
Great. And now the families that have achieved a large sum of wealth and understood and learned how to maintain it.
Right.
They've taken the steps, slow compounding interest steps. What have they done? They have a secure foundation. They don't squander that money away.
But it's always funny how third, fourth generation always ends up fucking it all up.
No, and they do, right? Because they
didn't. It's cause and effect.
Yeah,
they didn't do what great granddad did.
No, right? And so the thing is, that's that learning. There are steps that have to be taken, right? Like when you're a baby, right? Or even for you to even become a being, you have to grow. So that egg, right, has to become fertilized. That's step number one, right? And then you got to do the splitting, right? And it's got to create multiple cells. And then organs start to form. And then after the organs, the body starts to form, right? And then from that, the baby pops out. It's not just like a woman pushes out a full-grown man.
Right.
Everything has its steps it has to take. And the same thing goes with our consciousness. We cannot understand higher concepts, even like in physics, without understanding the fundamental parts of physics. Force equals mass times acceleration. And how does that get me into quantum mechanics? Well, it does.
Yes.
It will get you there. Classical, mechanical physics will get you to quantum mechanics, right? So there are steps you have to take in fundamental evolutionary understanding before you can get to that. You can't skip a step, because if you do, it's like you're removing one of your foundation stones from your rock solid house.
But you're also you're using a cheat code. Kevin Hart talked about this
that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah, because Kevin Hart said this the other day, and it's so true. He goes, I'm really worried about my children. Because this dude, he works his ass off. Kevin Hart's constantly working. He owns like 30 or more companies, just constant, super good dude, super positive. And he talked about this. He goes, I'm really worried about my children because I grew up super poor. I've had to go through each of these levels. I basically, with all my wealth, have a cheat code for my kids.
Yeah, a material cheat code.
Yeah, a material cheat code. So what begins to happen there? Joe Rogan had Miley Cyrus on the other day, and she talked about that.
I saw that. Yeah, she's like, I'm no longer vegan.
Yeah.
First of all, there's a lot of foolish things she said, but that's
but yeah, whatever. We don't need to get into your vegan.
I don't need to talk into just basic,
She eats 80% plant based. She said or something.
Yeah.
But even her right now, like she talked about the other day, she goes, I've had to learn so much, and then Joe Rogan said from the very beginning, when you're 10, 11, 12 years old, you've got all this fame. He's like, how does your brain can't function on this ability. So she's like at 28 or however, I think she's the same age as you are. But she's like starting to try to figure out her craziness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Kevin Hart with his children, same thing. It's like they had all these cheat codes where they could, and you what you said is materialists, you know, so they go to drugs and they went to alcohol and they you know, you see these people that seem to struggle when we perceive them as having it all.
Yeah, no, their consciousness and their spirit struggles continually because they might have jumped through these steps, but there was no balanced evolution of material. What I wanted you to get to.
Yes.
They've like that tree that's, you know, all cattywampus jacked up at an angle, right? They've spread it off in one direction, but they lack that balance of both sides. They don't have that yin and that yang.
Right.
Right. They've evolved in one state, but they've skipped the steps in the other one. So now it's totally out of whack and they're trying to figure out, well, how do I bring my world back into equilibrium?
It's almost like it would be preferred for them to go back and redo the steps, like the ones they skipped, like maybe they touched it with their foot.
No,
the thing is,
they
like
haven't
when you
even
run stairs.
I don't want to screw this up because materially you can skip some things.
Right.
But consciousness, the evolution of who you are, you can't skip those stages. So it's almost like a child playing in an adult's game.
Yes.
It's never going to work.
Or you perceive them as like Miley Cyrus being so famous.
Yes.
And so everywhere she goes, people perceive her like they cry and perceive her as a god.
Fame is not defined someone's evolutionary state.
And then you look at her and she testified to this.
Yeah.
You know, she was like, I'm all fucked up.
Yeah.
I'm doing drugs and alcohol.
You can't skip a step. But in saying that, to close us out, you need to be patient with yourself.
Yes. Oh,
okay?
That's so good.
You need to be extremely patient. Continue to be aware. Integrate the learnings that come around you and understand that you're striving and evolving. Just understand that that's what,
at your own pace.
At your own pace. And that's
and no one can tell you.
No. And you make the will to do those things. That's for you to do on your time. Okay. And don't worry about skipping a step because you have to learn it regardless. So don't think that you're going to just be like jumping through. It's like, no, you're going to have to understand it very, very well. You have to integrate it properly before you move on.
And this is where higher density living, being the Sherpa.
Yes.
Instead of being a religion that tells you have to do these steps this way.
No.
And you skipped this one and you didn't do this right.
No.
None of that is true.
None of that is true. Everything's asynchronous. It's on your time with your will.
And all higher density living is to kind of be a guide, to kind of show you, to kind of give you some tools.
You and I are striving.
Oh, dude, I'm 47. Dude, I'm just learning this shit.
You and I
got so much to go.
So you and I sitting here just teaching and learning from one another is unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
My perspective changes just like it's always evolving.
Yeah. It's like Right Side Fred and Miley Cyrus.
Yeah. We are nothing special. You and I are just as human being as everyone else.
Yeah. No.
We are just moving by the laws and recommendations that are the most obvious.
And what is obvious?
What is obvious?
Yes.
Nature.
Yes.
Yeah. We're looking at it.
And nature
gives us...
Look at
yourself in the mirror.
And the more that you are patient with yourself, the more that you look at nature, the more that you understand it, the more examples you will have to live who you need to be.
Precisely. Thanks, Jason, for closing that out.
Wow, I closed one out. I'm so excited.
See you later, everybody. All is one.
Look within, and live your life on the edge of two worlds. A reality where you find true understanding of who you are. The learning is done. Become the teacher in embodying the oneness of all. Walk the cliff's edge between the seen and the unseen realities. Become a higher density being. Please go to www.higherdensityliving.com.